is 12:47. I woke up around 10 o'clock or so. I'm actually reshooting this intro because I was going to make salsa, but then I was looking at all the ingredients and it was too many and I began to feel very overwhelmed, and so we're just gonna pump the brakes on that, and perhaps once Kyle wakes up he can come make salsa, but I do not have the energy right now. So anyways, I'm really hungover. I thought it would be fun to make my favorite breakfast, which is potatoes and eggs or breakfast tacos, depending on how you put it. If you put it in a tortilla or not. I will be making my own tortillas. I like butter tortillas. I'm speaking very softly because Kyle's still sleeping in the other room, and I don't want to wake him by being too loud. And also I'm hungover, so it's another quiet day. We're gonna be very slow, very chill, very deliberate with our movements. And maybe it's gonna take me an hour and a half to make breakfast, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But again, I'm hungover, and we're just doing this, and whatever happens. And okay, we're gonna get started. The tortilla butter should be softened for this recipe, and it is not soft enough, but we're just gonna do it anyway because I need this right now. I need to get going. I'm wearing long sleeves because I'm breaking out in a pretty gnarly case of ringworm. So always wash your clothes before you wear them, especially if they are from thrift stores. This is a cling wrap. Glad, who also they put the teeth to cut it on the lid instead of on the side of the box, and I don't like that. So Glad, if you're watching, if you could change that for me, please. Thank you. Hey guys, voiceover Shady here. I'm recording this a few days later, but we'll be continuing with the whisper. It sounded weird switching back and forth with my normal speaking voice, even if I adjust the volume, so yeah. Hope you like ASMR. Anyway, this tortilla recipe is super simple. I've slightly modified it, and I'm in the process of modifying it more to suit my taste, but I'll be sure to post the original down below. You're going to start by mixing the dry ingredients together, which are going to be 2 cups of flour, a teaspoon of salt, and 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Next, mix in the wet ingredients. I like to do about 3.5 tablespoons of softened butter and a little less than a half cup of warm water. This recipe is very forgiving, so don't worry about being exact. Make sure to pause for coffee. This is absolutely crucial to the breakfast making process. If you don't drink coffee, then you're not allowed to make breakfast. I'm sorry, but I don't make the rules. Once everything is combined, you're going to knead the dough until smooth. The dough should be slightly sticky, but not too sticky. You'll get a feel for the consistency you like best once you've made these a few times. Separate the dough into 8 pieces. Roll those pieces out into balls, cover with cling wrap, and let rest for at least 15 minutes. I usually just make these first and let them sit out until I'm ready for them. I also want to point out that I prefer to mix the dough by hand whenever possible. It's a great learning tool to get a feel for the dough and how it should behave. I weighed out my tortilla portions. You don't need to do that. I just bought the scale recently and am excited to use it. I spend a lot of time kneading this recipe. It really doesn't need that. It's just a really good way to take out my general frustrations. I don't show it, but to finish these guys, you just roll them out on a floured surface and toss them in the pan until they're finished. I like to do mine on the thicker side for a nice soft bite. There's just something about the texture that I can't get enough of. And don't worry if your tortillas aren't perfect circles. I finally figured out how to do that on my third attempt of this recipe. Practice really is all you need. I started making my own tortillas a couple of weeks ago when we moved to Chicago. In Dallas, most grocery stores make their own tortillas in-house. My favorite was, of course, Central Market's wheat tortillas, but around here I haven't really seen any that caught my eye, so I started making my own, and I can't get over how much I love them. There's something very rewarding about wanting something, being unable to find it in stores, and just making it yourself.
So now we're gonna start the potatoes and eggs. Last time I made 4 potatoes and it was too much. 2 potatoes is still probably too much, but I'm really hungry and this isn't gonna be done for like an hour. And your girl needs a sustenance.
This recipe isn't really a recipe. It's a little different every time, depending on what's in the kitchen and what I'm feeling that day. But I'll go over the base and you can make it your own. I chop up a bunch of potatoes and onions. The ratio just depends on what I have at the moment. I usually like a lot more onion than the normal person, but it does cook down, so keep that in mind. Today I did 3 potatoes and I started with half an onion, but wound up using the whole thing by the end of it.
We're gonna need a bigger pan.
Hilarious. While using a knife, be sure to pay attention to what you're doing. Singing is fun and all, but try not to lose focus. Also, lyrics have never been more appropriate.
To meet his death, about to meet his death.
Yeah, that happened. Practice proper knife technique, folks. Okay, but we've recovered. Okay. Lesson learned. Please don't tell Kyle.
I immediately told Kyle. Cook the potatoes and onions on low heat with some butter, salt, and pepper for as long as it takes. Just until the potatoes start looking how you want them. I like a crispy outside but a soft inside, and you achieve that by cooking them low and slow. This also cooks the onions way down and brings out their natural sweetness, which I love. Once they're nearing done, about 10 or 15 minutes out, I'll add fresh garlic or jalapeno if I feel like it that day. Again, that just depends on if I have it, if jalapenos are in season, if I want to go through the nightmare of chopping garlic. That's also when you would want to taste the potato and see if you want to add any seasoning. I usually don't. I really like to let the ingredients speak for themselves in this recipe, at least until I drown them in salsa. But that's what's so great about this recipe, is you really get to do whatever you want. For example, I like russet potatoes with yellow onion and butter. But you could do Yukon Golds with shallots and vegetable oil. It really doesn't matter. Once I add those final touches in, I start on the tortillas, which I'm still learning how to do, so if I start running out of time, I just turn the pan down to its lowest setting to keep it warm. While I'm making the tortillas, I whisk together the eggs and milk and put some extra salt and pepper in there too. I usually do 1 egg per potato, but sometimes I do more if I'm feeling particularly eggy. As for how much milk, like a third of the volume of the whisked eggs is usually where I wind up, but also whatever. As long as it's more egg than milk, it'll be fine. You also don't even need the milk, I just like it. Again, I hesitate to call this a recipe because it really is whatever you want. Anyway, when you're ready, pour the egg mixture over the potatoes and let them cook while you mix it all around. I always forget to turn the pan to a higher temp, so try not to forget, but if you do, whatever. Not to be a recipe website, but I do have legitimate childhood memories of making this. It's so easy, a 10-year-old could do it. But seriously, it was one of the few things I could actually make, and so I would maybe once or twice a month, except we would just buy the tortillas. Anyway, I was actually talking to my brother recently, and he was like, "Do you remember making potatoes and eggs?" And I was like, "Of course, I still eat that all the time." And he was like, "Well, I made it the other day, and it was my first time having it in years, and I ate so much I got sick," which, same. But that's not my only family potato story. My mother actually, bless her heart, is more of a math inclined person. Her degree is in some sort of math. I don't remember what exactly, and she taught math for several years. I say this as a preface because she is not a history person in the slightest. This became important one day when the Irish potato famine was brought up. I was talking about how they had to flee because they had no food, and she goes, "What do you mean?" And I go, "What do you mean, what do I mean?" And she says, "I thought there was no food, so all they had to eat was potatoes." I laughed, thinking she was joking, only she wasn't. So I had to explain how they already only had potatoes to eat, and then there were no potatoes. Don't worry, she's since learned.
Okay, guys, while that's getting started, I'm going to do a quick music video to Alice Cooper's Poison. So just let me have this. You're cruel. Deep eyes. Your blood like ice. One look could kill. I don't know this part. Don't touch. Okay, I skipped around. I'm not sure which part this is. But you know, I was having a really good time, so you're welcome. Okay, that's poison. Poison running through my veins. It's poison. Poison. I don't want to break these chains. Poison. Okay, I just watched that footage. It was pretty bad, so it probably won't get posted, but you know what? Who knows? Thank you. Also, the coffee's kicking in.
One of my favorite things to do is read the Wikipedia article about literally everything in the entirety of the world, because you can pretty much always find something interesting. Like, while making this video, I wanted to see if I could find something to talk about on the potato page, and first of all, I would like to apologize to every history teacher I've ever had, because I'm sure I've been taught this. But it turns out potatoes are actually native to the Americas. I always assumed they were European because of how prolific they are in recipes and the whole Irish thing, but it turns out they weren't introduced until the late 1500s, where it slowly spread over the continent as a food for the poor. That was actually a running theme on the history of the potato page. The 1785 edition of Bon Gardinier, which was a French gardening encyclopedia, is quoted as saying, "There is no vegetable about which so much has been written and so much enthusiasm has been shown. The poor should be quite content with this foodstuff." Which, very 18th century French aristocracy, if I do say so. Okay, last potato topic. I just want to mention this story because I found it hilarious. Potatoes weren't always so popular in Europe and actually started out as rather unfashionable. They're part of the nightshade family, which is poisonous, so don't eat too many of the greens. But that, combined with the potato being generally perceived as quite ugly, led to it not being used or eaten for quite some time. How ugly, you ask? So ugly, in fact, that they were thought to cause leprosy, and the French Parliament made it illegal to grow potatoes for 24 years. Even peasants, who historically are always starving, refused to eat the food because they didn't trust it because it grew underground. There's more to the story, so much in fact I kind of want to do a whole video talking about the wild and wacky history of the potato, but that's not today, so let's move on. I don't know if you noticed, but I've actually been singing to myself throughout this entire video, and here's a bit of what that sounds like at this speed. Oh yeah, it's kind of fun. Alright you guys, it's that time. I had a lot of fun making this video. It's my first time getting to experiment with video editing, and while it took me forever, I learned so much. It was also a lot of fun to just wake up and decide to start filming and then make a video from there instead of having any sort of plan in place. But I think in the future things will be a little more coherent. This was really just a learning experience for me, so if you actually watched the whole video, thank you. So yeah, this is VoiceOver Shady signing off, and I'll let Cooking Shady see us out. Well, you guys, that's about it for this video. I know it wasn't great, but we did it. I'm nowhere near done, but I gotta call on the big guns that are Kyle, who knows how to cook, to come and help me with this salsa recipe so I don't mess it up. And he doesn't want to be on camera, and I respect that. So yeah, we're gonna call it here.